What if every prayer you've ever prayed has been working against you? I know that sounds radical, perhaps even blasphemous, but stay with me until the end of this video, because what you're about to discover might completely transform your understanding of prayer, faith, and how divine power actually flows into your life. For years, maybe even decades, you've been doing exactly what you were taught. You've prayed for healing when sickness came. You've asked for provision when bills piled up. You've pleaded for breakthrough when doors kept slamming shut. And yet, has this ever happened to you? The more desperately you prayed, the more distant God seemed. The harder you asked, the less you received. It's as if the very act of reaching out was somehow pushing away what you needed most. Here's the uncomfortable truth that most ministries won't tell you. Every time you beg God for something, you're unconsciously declaring to the universe that you don't have it. When you pray for healing, you're affirming sickness. When you ask for abundance, you're reinforcing lack. It's a spiritual paradox that has kept millions of believers trapped in cycles of defeat, wondering why their faith isn't producing the results they see in Scripture. But before we begin, please hit the like button and let me know where in the world you're watching from today. It's always fascinating seeing who's joining us from around the world, and if you haven't already, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any of our future videos. Now, what if I told you that Smith Wigglesworth, the apostle of faith who walked in unprecedented power, discovered something that changes everything about how we approach prayer? He found that the most powerful spiritual state isn't petitioning God at all. It's not crafting perfect prayers or mustering up enough faith to move mountains. The secret is far more radical than that. Wigglesworth discovered that true spiritual power comes when you stop trying to get God to do something and instead surrender every thought you have, allowing God to literally become your mind, not your helper, not your divine consultant who responds to your requests, but your actual consciousness, your thinking, your awareness itself. This isn't about praying harder or believing stronger. This is about a fundamental shift in how you relate to the divine. Imagine what would happen if you stopped trying to figure everything out with your limited human understanding. What if you released your grip on those anxious thoughts, those desperate strategies, those endless calculations about how to make your life work? What if instead, you simply opened yourself to let divine intelligence think through you as naturally as breath flows through your lungs? Most believers spend their entire lives on the outside looking in, treating God like a vending machine in the sky. Insert the right prayer, push the right buttons, and hope something comes out. But what you're about to discover in this video reveals a completely different reality. A reality where you're not begging for blessings from a distant deity, but awakening to the truth that divine consciousness is already flowing through you, waiting for you to get out of the way. The transformation begins the moment you understand why asking keeps you trapped and how surrender sets you free. Here's what Smith Wigglesworth uncovered that shook the religious establishment of his day and continues to challenge everything we've been taught about prayer. After decades of walking in extraordinary power, seeing the blind receive sight and the crippled walk, he made a discovery that explains why some believers live in constant breakthrough, while others remain trapped in perpetual struggle. The hidden truth is this: we are not separate beings desperately trying to get God's attention. We're not spiritual beggars standing outside heaven's gate, rattling the bars and hoping someone inside will finally hear our cries. That entire paradigm, the one taught in most churches, the one that keeps you on your knees pleading and bargaining, is built on a fundamental misunderstanding of who you are and how divine power operates. Wigglesworth discovered that divine intelligence doesn't live somewhere distant, waiting for you to pray the perfect prayer or demonstrate enough faith to earn a response. It's flowing through you right now, in this very moment, as naturally as blood flows through your veins. The transformation happens when you stop trying to control everything with your limited human mind and simply allow that divine consciousness to become your thinking. Think about this for a moment. Right now, as you're watching this video, there's a broadcast happening that never stops. Divine abundance, supernatural guidance, healing power, and unconditional love are flowing toward you like a perpetual stream of grace. It's been flowing since before you were born and will continue long after you're gone. The broadcast never stops, never fades, never diminishes. So why aren't you experiencing it? Why does it feel like God is distant, silent, or ignoring your desperate requests? Here's the revelation that changes everything. The problem isn't on God's end. The divine broadcast is perfect, constant, and complete. The problem is that your consciousness is tuned to the wrong frequency. Your mind is so filled with anxious thoughts, fearful calculations, and desperate strategies that you literally cannot perceive what's already being given to you. It's like having a radio playing the most beautiful music in the universe, but your receiver is tuned to static. The music doesn't stop because you can't hear it. It's still there, still perfect, still available. You're just not positioned to receive it. Every worried thought about your situation tunes you deeper into static. Every moment spent trying to figure it all out with your limited understanding moves you further from the frequency of divine transmission. If this resonates with you, subscribe to join this community. We're exploring how to let divine intelligence flow through every area of life. This is the journey that most believers never make. They spend their entire lives focused on the asking, never realizing that the real transformation happens in the receiving. The impact of this mindset shift cannot be overstated. Behind the scenes of your consciousness, something extraordinary begins to unfold when you stop broadcasting lack and start resonating with the fullness that's already yours. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic because understanding how to shift your frequency from static to divine reception is where the real power lies. There are specific things happening in the invisible realm when you make this transition, and recognizing them will help you stay aligned with the flow of abundance that's trying to reach you. Write "I'm tuning in" the comments if this is starting to make sense to you. Let me paint you a picture that will help you understand exactly what's happening in the spiritual dimension right now. Imagine there's a radio station broadcasting the most exquisite music throughout the entire universe. This broadcast runs 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, never pausing, never fading, never requiring maintenance or rest. It's been playing since before time began and will continue into eternity. The signal is perfect, crystal clear, and always available. Now here's the crucial question that determines your entire spiritual experience. Are you tuned in to receive it? When your radio is turned off or dialed to static, does the music stop broadcasting? Of course not. The music continues playing perfectly. You're simply not positioned to hear it. This is exactly what's happening with divine intelligence in your life right this moment. Solutions to your most pressing problems are being transmitted to you right now. Opportunities for breakthrough are being broadcast directly into your atmosphere. Revelations that would completely transform your situation are flowing in your direction like waves of light. The transmission never stops. But when your consciousness is cluttered with fear-based thinking, when you're operating from that desperate energy of constant asking and begging, you're essentially tuned to static. The divine broadcast is perfect. Your reception is the problem. Behind the scenes of your awareness, something extraordinary happens the moment you make a fundamental shift in how you approach this. Instead of generating more anxious thoughts about what you need and how to get it, you simply surrender those thoughts and allow yourself to become receptive. This might sound subtle, but the energetic impact is profound beyond measure. When you're stuck in asking mode, constantly petitioning and pleading, your entire being vibrates with a frequency of lack. You can feel it, can't you? That tightness in your chest when you pray desperately for something you don't have. That underlying current of anxiety that whispers through every desperate request. There's this energetic signature you're broadcasting that says, "I am incomplete, I am broken, I am separate from what I need." And here's the hidden truth that changes everything. This vibration of lack actually pushes away the very things you're reaching for. Think about it from a purely human level first. When someone approaches you from desperate neediness, what's your instinctive response? You pull back. When someone relates to you from a place of grasping and scarcity, it creates an uncomfortable energy that makes you want to create distance. The universe operates on this same principle. It doesn't respond to your words, your religious vocabulary, or even your theological correctness. It responds to your energetic signature, to the frequency you're broadcasting through your consciousness. So when you're vibrating at the frequency of "I don't have," when that's your dominant energetic state, Life simply mirrors that back to you with more experiences of not having. It's not punishment. It's not God testing you or teaching you patience. It's resonance. It's the law of attraction operating exactly as designed. Your consciousness is a magnet, and whatever frequency you consistently broadcast is what you attract back into your experience. The transformation that occurs when you shift from asking to receiving creates an entirely different reality. Instead of broadcasting lack, you begin resonating with fullness. Instead of separation, you embody union. There's a quiet confidence that settles into your being, not from ego or false bravado, but from a deep recognition that divine supply is already yours. The journey from desperation to receptivity isn't just a mental exercise. It's an energetic recalibration that opens doors your striving could never unlock. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic because recognizing these principles intellectually is one thing, but experiencing the actual transformation in your daily life requires understanding what this looks like in practical terms. The real power emerges when you see how this shift manifests in tangible decisions and real-world circumstances. Type divine flow in the comments if you're beginning to recognize this pattern in your own experience. When you make this shift from desperate asking to receptive surrender, something profound begins unfolding in the invisible realm of your consciousness. Instead of that constant vibration of lack that's been defining your experience, you start resonating with an entirely different frequency, the frequency of fullness. It's not something you create through effort or positive thinking. It's what naturally emerges when you stop interfering with the divine flow that's always been there. A quiet confidence settles into your being, and here's what makes this so different from anything you've experienced before. It's not coming from your ego. It's not that false bravado where you're trying to convince yourself and everyone else that you've got it all together. This is something deeper, something that feels more like recognition than achievement. You're not becoming something new. You're remembering something that's always been true, that what God has, you have. That what God is, you are. Now, I know that might sound arrogant to religious ears, but stay with me because this is actually the most humble acknowledgement possible. You're not claiming credit for anything. You're not saying you've earned or deserved divine abundance through your own merit. What you're recognizing is that your good doesn't flow from your own efforts, your clever strategies, or your ability to convince God to bless you. It flows through you as divine expression, as naturally as a river flows downhill or sunlight pours through an open window. The impact of this transformation isn't just theoretical or mystical. It shows up in tangible, measurable ways in your everyday life. Those decisions that used to paralyze you with fear and anxiety suddenly become clear. It's not that you're trying harder to figure things out or spending more time analyzing every option. It's that divine wisdom flows through you naturally when your anxious thinking steps aside and stops blocking the transmission. Behind the scenes of your consciousness, opportunities that were always present but completely invisible to your cluttered mind suddenly appear right in front of you. It's like they've been waiting there all along, just outside your field of awareness, and the moment your frequency shifts, they become visible. You didn't create these opportunities through manifestation techniques or positive affirmations. You simply cleared away the static that was preventing you from perceiving what was already available. Relationships that felt strained, difficult, or even broken begin healing without you forcing anything or trying to manipulate outcomes. This might be the most surprising transformation of all, because you're not doing relationship seminars, or reading communication books, or implementing new strategies to fix people. The change happens because you're no longer relating from a place of need and desperation. When you're operating from wholeness instead of lack, when you're resonating with divine fullness instead of human emptiness, the entire dynamic of how you connect with others fundamentally shifts. Tap that like button to help this message reach others who need it, and to let me know this is serving you. People respond to your energy before they respond to your words. When your energetic signature changes from grasping to giving, from demanding to offering, from lack to abundance, everything in your relational world begins reorganizing itself around this new frequency. It's not magic, and it's not manipulation. It's the natural consequence of consciousness. Transformation rippling out into every dimension of your experience. Now I want to go even deeper into this topic because understanding the principle is valuable, but seeing exactly how this plays out in real situations with real people facing real challenges takes this from concept to practical application. What happens when someone actually commits to this journey of surrender instead of striving reveals dimensions of divine power most believers never access. Share wholeness over need in the comments if this resonance is shifting something in how you understand your relationships and decisions. Let me show you something that might surprise you by its simplicity. The actual practice of surrendering your thoughts and letting God be your mind doesn't require elaborate rituals, hours of prayer, or special training. The transformation begins with just 10 minutes of your day. That's it. 10 minutes where you stop approaching spirituality like you're placing an order at a cosmic restaurant, rattling off your list of needs and demands to a divine waiter who may or may not deliver what you want. Instead, you sit quietly. It doesn't matter where. It doesn't matter what position you're in. And you say one simple thing within yourself. I'm now open to receive all that God is giving me. Notice what's happening in that statement. There's no begging, no bargaining, no desperate pleading for specific outcomes. You're not trying to convince God to finally pay attention to your situation or manipulate circumstances through force of will. You're simply acknowledging a profound truth that's already operating. Divine supply is flowing right now, and you're opening yourself to receive it. This paradigm shift might seem subtle on the surface, but behind the scenes it's revolutionary. You're moving from the exhausting energy of pushing and striving to the natural flow of receiving. Think about how creation itself operates. Does the earth strain and worry about whether rain will come? Does it create elaborate strategies to make the clouds open? No. It simply remains receptive. And when the rain falls, it receives. Your lungs don't beg for air or petition for the next breath. They simply inhale the oxygen that's already present in abundance all around you. A flower doesn't manufacture sunlight through sheer willpower or positive thinking. It doesn't spend hours in desperate prayer asking the sun to shine. It simply turns its face toward the light and receives what's being offered. This is the hidden truth about how divine supply actually works. A truth that transforms everything once you grasp it. You're not creating abundance. You're not earning it through religious performance. You're not convincing a reluctant deity to finally give you what you need. You're becoming an open channel for what's already flowing in your direction every single moment. The impact of this simple 10-minute practice unfolds gradually as you make it part of your daily journey. Those 10 minutes become sacred space where your anxious human thinking steps aside and divine intelligence moves through you unobstructed. You're not forcing visualizations or straining to imagine specific outcomes. You're not white-knuckling your way through affirmations while secretly doubting they'll work. You're simply being receptive, allowing revelations and intuitive wisdom to emerge naturally, like spring water bubbling up from an underground source that was always there. This is the transformation from effort to effortlessness, from the exhausting struggle of trying to control everything with your limited understanding, to the grace of letting infinite wisdom think through you. Each day you practice this receptivity, you become more attuned to the divine frequency, more sensitive to the guidance that's always been broadcasting, more aligned with the flow that's your natural state. The decisions you need to make become clearer, not because you're thinking harder, but because you're thinking less and receiving more. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic because understanding the mechanics of receptivity is one thing, but witnessing how this practice transforms actual lives when people face impossible situations reveals the true power of what we're discussing here. The real proof isn't in the theory, but in the testimonies of those who've made this journey from desperation to divine flow. Put open to receive in the comments if you're ready to start this 10-minute practice in your own life. Let me tell you about Maria, because her story illustrates exactly what happens when you make this shift from desperate asking to receptive surrender. For 3 years, she had been praying for financial breakthrough with an intensity that bordered on violence. Every night she would cry out to heaven, demanding answers, begging God to fix her mounting debt and dwindling bank account. She attended every prosperity service, sowed every seed offering, declared every financial scripture she could find. But the more desperately she asked, the worse her situation became. It was like watching someone try to catch water with clenched fists. The tighter she gripped, the faster it slipped away. When Maria discovered this teaching about receptivity, her first reaction was fear. If she stopped asking, if she stopped fighting and striving and demanding, wouldn't God forget about her completely? But desperation had brought her to a place where she was willing to try anything. For 30 days, she committed to practicing differently. Each morning and evening, she would sit quietly and simply surrender her anxious thoughts, opening her consciousness to divine supply without demanding specific outcomes or micromanaging how God should solve her problems. The first 2 weeks felt brutal. Nothing seemed to be happening externally, and internally she felt empty, almost frightened by the silence. But something was shifting beneath the surface that she couldn't yet perceive. Behind the scenes of her awareness, a profound transformation was taking place in her energy field. That constant knot of anxiety that had lived in her chest for 3 years began loosening its grip. Her sleep improved. Her decisions became clearer. By week 3, something remarkable started happening. Not through her own striving or strategizing, but through the natural orchestration of divine intelligence. An unexpected freelance opportunity appeared through an old contact she hadn't heard from in years. A debt she thought was permanent got mysteriously forgiven. Through a company restructuring she had nothing to do with. A refund check she'd completely forgotten about arrived in the mail. None of these solutions came from her anxious thinking or desperate planning. They emerged naturally as she stopped blocking the flow with her interference. 6 months later, Maria's entire financial reality had transformed. Not because she figured out the perfect strategy, but because she allowed God to orchestrate solutions her limited human consciousness could never have conceived. Then there's David, whose journey demonstrates this same principle in the realm of physical healing. For 5 years, he had battled a chronic illness that doctors couldn't fully explain or cure. His prayer life had become exhausting, an endless cycle of begging, pleading, bargaining with God, trying every healing service and prayer line he could find. The turning point came when exhaustion finally drove him to surrender completely. He stopped fighting his symptoms with anxious mental strategies. He stopped demanding that God heal him according to his timeline and specifications. Instead, David began sitting quietly each day, simply opening himself to receive the perfect health that existed as his divine inheritance. This wasn't denial or positive thinking. It was recognition of a deeper spiritual reality beyond physical appearance. Within a year, his medical tests showed significant improvement that his doctors called spontaneous remission. David had a different name for it, learning to let God be his mind instead of trying to heal himself through human effort and desperate prayer. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic because these testimonies reveal something crucial about how transformation actually happens. It's not about the amount of time you pray or the intensity of your asking. It's about the quality of your consciousness and whether you're positioned to receive what's already flowing toward you. Write "I'm releasing control" in the comments if these stories are resonating with something you're currently facing in your own journey. Jennifer's story takes this principle into what might be the most challenging territory of all: relationships. For years, she had been on her knees praying the same desperate prayer every single night. Please change my husband. Make him understand me. Fix our communication. Transform him into the partner I need. Every prayer was focused outward, asking God to manipulate someone else, to force external circumstances to align with what she thought would make her happy. What she didn't realize was that this entire approach was actually reinforcing the very separation she was trying to heal. Her asking was broadcasting a clear message into the universe. I am incomplete. He is wrong. We are broken. When Jennifer encountered this teaching on receptivity, something inside her resisted immediately. If she stopped asking God to fix her marriage, wouldn't it definitely fall apart? But her current strategy clearly wasn't working, and desperation makes you willing to try radical approaches. So she decided to experiment with something completely different. Instead of trying to control her husband or manipulate outcomes with her anxious thoughts and desperate prayers, she practiced receiving divine love into her own consciousness. Each morning she would sit quietly, surrendering all her judgments about what he should be doing differently, opening herself simply to receive God's love without conditions or demands. The transformation started so subtly, she almost didn't notice it at first. She found herself responding to her husband differently, less reactive when he said things that used to trigger her, more peaceful in situations that previously sparked conflict, genuinely more loving without forcing it or pretending. Behind the scenes of this internal shift, the entire relationship dynamic began changing. He started responding differently too, not because she was manipulating him with new techniques, but because the energy she was bringing into their interactions had fundamentally transformed. This is the hidden power of surrender that most people never discover. When you transform your own consciousness, you change the energetic field that everyone around you is responding to. But here's what makes this practice truly revolutionary. You don't have to wait for your 10 minutes of quiet meditation to experience this shift. Throughout your entire day, in the most mundane moments, you can practice what Smith Wigglesworth called practicing the presence. While you're washing dishes, stuck in traffic, standing in line at the grocery store waiting for a meeting to start, you can pause for just a second and acknowledge one simple truth. God is here. This isn't asking God to show up or begging for divine intervention. It's recognizing what's already true in this exact moment. The divine presence isn't somewhere else waiting for you to summon it with the right prayer formula. It's right here, right now, in this breath, in this moment. These micro moments of acknowledgement become profound resets of your entire consciousness. They train your awareness to surrender the controlling thoughts that usually dominate your mind and remain in receptive mode instead. The impact accumulates over time in ways you can actually measure in your daily experience. Where you once automatically responded to every challenge with anxiety and frantic mental calculations about how to fix things, you begin responding from a place of allowing God to be your mind, trusting that divine intelligence is already working through the situation in ways you can't yet perceive. Each time you pause and acknowledge the presence, you're tuning your consciousness back to the divine frequency, clearing away the static that was blocking your reception. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic because understanding how to practice presence is valuable, but recognizing what's actually happening beneath the surface during these moments reveals why this simple practice carries such transformative power. There's a fundamental shift occurring in how you relate to every challenge you face. Type God is here in the comments if you're beginning to practice this awareness throughout your ordinary moments. Here's what most people get completely wrong about spiritual practice, and understanding this one shift will revolutionize how you approach every challenge you face. When you encounter a problem, whether it's a health issue, a financial crisis, or a relationship breakdown, the automatic response is to identify the condition, analyze every detail of what's wrong, and then ask God to come in and fix it. This seems logical, even responsible, but there's a hidden flaw in this approach that keeps you trapped in the very condition you're trying to escape. The breakthrough comes when you realize you don't need to treat the condition at all. You treat your consciousness instead. When you're facing any challenge in your life, instead of focusing on the problem and devising mental strategies to solve it, you practice something completely different. You say within yourself, I release this situation to divine intelligence. I open myself to receive God's perfect solution. I rest in the truth that infinite wisdom is already resolving this in ways I cannot. See? Notice what's happening here. You're not analyzing the problem from every angle. You're not asking for a specific outcome based on your limited understanding. You're surrendering your entire thinking about the situation and allowing divine intelligence to work through it. This creates a gateway for solutions that your human mind, with all its limitations and fears, could never conceive. The impact of this mindset shift is profound because you're no longer trying to force outcomes through your own understanding. You're stepping aside and letting infinite wisdom operate. Behind the scenes, possibilities that were completely invisible to your anxious thinking suddenly become available. Opportunities emerge that weren't there before, not because they were created out of nothing, but because your consciousness has shifted to a frequency where you can finally perceive them. This is the journey from human effort to divine orchestration, from your limited perspective to infinite intelligence working through your circumstances. But now I want to share with you what might be the most challenging concept to grasp, yet it's also the most liberating truth you'll ever encounter. Your entire life, you've been operating from a fundamental belief that shapes everything you experience. That belief is this: You are a separate human being, disconnected from God, trying to get things from an external deity who may or may not respond to your requests. This belief creates the whole paradigm of asking, begging, and pleading. It positions you as the spiritual beggar standing outside heaven's gates, hoping someone will throw you what you need. But here's the ultimate revelation that transforms everything. You are not separate from God trying to receive gifts from an external source. You are the very consciousness of God receiving awareness of your own infinite nature. This isn't metaphor or poetic language. This is the hidden truth about your actual identity that changes the entire game. When you surrender every thought and let God be your mind, you're not getting something new that you didn't have before. You're removing the veil that has been blocking your recognition of what has always been yours. You're not becoming spiritual through effort and practice. You're recognizing the spirituality that has always been your essential nature, covered over by layers of false identification and separation consciousness. The impact of this identity shift ripples through every dimension of your existence. Behind the scenes of your awareness, your entire relationship with life transforms. You stop approaching each day as a struggle to acquire what you lack and start experiencing it as a journey of discovering what you already are. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic because recognizing this truth intellectually is just the beginning. What happens when you actually start living from this awareness in your daily life reveals dimensions of power and peace most believers never experience. This is where everything we've discussed converges into practical transformation. Share, "I am divine consciousness," in the comments if this truth is beginning to awaken something in you. If you've made it this far with me, I want you to know something. You're not here by accident. The fact that you've stayed through this entire exploration tells me you're genuinely ready for this shift in consciousness. You're not just casually browsing spiritual content. You're actively seeking the transformation that comes from surrendering your thoughts and letting God be your mind. I create these videos because I truly believe these insights have the power to change lives, not through my words, but through the eternal truths they point toward. If this message resonated with something deep inside you, I'd love for you to join this community of seekers who are learning to move from separation consciousness to divine receptivity. Hit that subscribe button so you can continue this journey with us, because each video explores another dimension of what it means to live from divine intelligence rather than limited human thinking. And here's what would mean the world to me. Drop a comment below saying, "I'm letting God be my mind," so I know you were here, that you received this message, that something shifted in you as we walk through this together. Your presence in this community matters more than you realize. A simple tap on the like button helps this teaching reach others who are searching for exactly what you just discovered. It's a small gesture that creates ripples far beyond what we can see. There's a video right here that goes even deeper into how divine intelligence operates when you completely release control. Click on it and let's continue this conversation together. I'll meet you there.